What up? This is Rama Screen, and it's time for another interview. And in celebration of the new animated series, Dead End Paranormal Park, which is now available for you to stream on Netflix, I'm here talking with the star of this new show, Zach Barak. How are you, Zach?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, good, good. Congratulations on the show. I'm a big fan. I've watched it, very much enjoyed it. I actually posted my review of Dead End not too long ago. Positive review, of course. Very fun, funny show. Now, your lead character, Barney, is trans. So, in the process of your casting the voice for this, since you're also a trans actor, did the producers actively try to cast a trans actor for the role, or did you have to beat out a competition in an audition for it?
So, I think from the beginning they were only going to be looking at trans talent. I believe that they um, worked with GLAAD and Nick Adams at the very least from GLAAD, and Hamish as well is just someone who I think feels pretty strongly about making sure that the character was represented by someone who could identify with it. Um, for all the reasons that I think a lot of people think it's important. Um, in that it's authentic and then it doesn't feel quite as much like a sort of interpretation of that experience. And, that like, unfortunately, we don't live in the hypothetical world where there isn't a bunch of assumptions or there aren't a bunch of assumptions being made about trans people at any given time. So I think it was important to them to make sure that until we get to that quote unquote hypothetical world, um, you know, that it just was someone who could accurately represent the group.
You mentioned Hamish prior to this project. How familiar with you with Hamish webcomics that became the basis for this show? And what was your initial reaction when you found out that the character is somebody you can inherently identify with?
Well, I was like, so I was online, I was on Tumblr and like, a lot of these online spaces back in like 2014. I graduated high school in 2015. So I was like coming out as trans around the time that this comic was getting sort of coming into, you know, the universe. I was like, I don't know the word to say, but yeah, that I
Gaining
think it like
popularity?
on some level, yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like and that like I think even just like the webcomic came out in 2014, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken.
Hmm.
So I'll just say like I knew of it on some level within a few years of it coming out, but it wasn't until I got the audition that I read the print book and was like, oh, Hamish is a genius. Um, and I know I'm biased, but I was really impressed with. I think it's just a really interesting take on the like. I think that for like a couple years now, we've been talking about the way queer people are represented in media, and so frequently, the buzzwords are like, demonizing queer people, and this was just such a like overt take on that. And I think outside of like the character him from Powerpuff Girls, as a child, I by no means saw what at least felt like a somewhat self aware take on that. And that's me being presumptuous. I don't know if they intended for that character to be that way, but I just remember reading the comics and being like, wow, he's really smart and has a really interesting way of unpacking this trope.
And thank you for sharing that. What I love about this show, I haven't read the comics. Would love to someday. But one of the things I love about this show is the friendship story of Barney and Norma, and the characters are so diverse. They're unapologetically diverse, and the story unapologetically embraces its absurdity. You know, Courtney, the devil, the demon that just wants to go back to hell, just cracks me up.
Yeah.
Uh, now, but on to add to that though, when voicing Barney, Zach, did you alter your voice in some ways, inflection, cadence? How did you approach Barney? Did you put your own input in your conversation with Nicole and Hamish? what did they say to you in order to capture what they had envisioned of Barney?
Well, it was interesting. So nobody like actually my agents and I had the conversation,
Mm,
or the booth engineer and voice director who does like the auditions at my agency like might have had a little bit of input. But it's funny because by the time I made it into the callback, which was the first time I met Hamish, um I had already come up with who I thought Barney was, and he
mm,
just was like, "Yeah, that's correct."
really?
Like he was just like, "Yeah, you got it." Like that's what I thought. Um, and I will say, like, yeah, he doesn't sound like exactly, like me. I tried to make him sound a little younger,
Mm,
um, and goofier. uh, although, I think he is a bit of me, so that would have been fine if I had just put like myself in it. But I think that the thing that makes him really special, in my opinion, is his sort of
mm,
like naivety, naivete, or whatever it is. I don't know how to say it,
that's
but
fine.
like that he like is, I think, on purpose sometimes a little dense rather than wanting to deal with things. So I think like there is some protective armor in being like a little bit of like a dumb goofball. So I was like, yeah, I think he talks a little bit like a young person would, which is like not quite on purpose. But I think that he's kind of got like some nervousness in his voice and also some confidence, because I think that I don't think he struggles with his identity outside of what people make him struggle with it, if that
Mm,
makes sense. Like,
mm,
I think his issues come from other people having a problem with who he is, not him having that. So I think if he ever does feel nervous or anything, it feels really intentional, like, for example, when they go to like hell for the
yeah,
game show,
yes.
uh, he's sort of the only one who's like, "Are we sure we want to do this?" And he's like very, "Hey guys, we don't have to do this." And that's like so like, that's just how like teens get when they're nervous. They don't want to like show that they're nervous, but they are. So
Yeah.
that was part of what I mean by like kind of the intentional nervousness. But that I also think that, yeah, I don't think that he's ever nervous about his own identity. I think he's just like, we're in hell. Are you guys sure? You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I came from with it. It's a bit rambly, but hopefully that made sense.
Oh, you did so well as Barney. Hats off to you, Zach.
Thank you.
Behind the scenes, though, just curiosity here. Did you and your co-stars, Emily and Cody, get to spend time together to create that chemistry? Or was it the old-fashioned that where everybody's separate, recording their own part them by themselves in a booth?
It was all separate.
Oh,
We all met one time for a table read on Zoom, like pretty much right after I got cast. And it was so odd because it was the beginning of lockdown.
mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, well, I'll meet very soon. It was wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. But I will say, like, it was super nice. I've gotten like to know Cody pretty well
Mm.
virtually. I really, really enjoy getting to know her. I think we're really similar people in a lot of ways. So it's like nice to bond and chat about like work, but also just like life. And Cody's I love every single person that was in this. And like Coco, who plays Pauline, I've had the pleasure of also kind of getting to chat with a bit online. Um,
Oh,
I really hope I get to continue to work with these folks. Be it in this project or otherwise, because they're all good people.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's the beauty of during the lockdown when everything else shut down, but animation kept going. You know what I'm saying? That's the
yeah,
beauty of animation. Now,
yeah,
I want to ask you this, Zach, because Barney's relationship with his parents was kind of rocky,
yeah,
and it's something that a lot of young adults can relate to. A lot of adults at that age can relate to the whole miscommunication or arguments with the parents
yeah,
about who they want us to be and versus who we want us to be. So, but the way the show attacks it or confronts it is
yeah,
kind of sort of like a humorous, light, sort of funny kind of way. So it's not
yeah.
too heavy. And do you think that that kind of strategy or that method is effective to get the thing across to the audiences?
Yeah, I think everything, needs to be like that. I think something only light and something only heavy is gonna miss the mark. I
Mm,
think there is no like light way to go about certain topics in the show, for example, but I also think doing it like heavy and like that we've seen so much of that, almost any time we see certain storylines on like other TV shows, it feels like so heavy that you're like, I feel like it's heavy for the sake of being heavy, like
mm,
it doesn't feel like we're actually coming from a place of truth. It feels like we're coming from a place of, I want the audience to cry when they watch this, I want them to feel this and this, and it's like, hey, um that's like a lot to put on your audience member. B, it's like tragic and it doesn't really diversify the stories we're telling. And um, C, I don't think that um, I don't think it's true, right? Like nothing is that simple. Um, I can't remember who it was, but I was reading an interview once about how like often trauma is misrepresented, and honestly might have been Judd Apatow who was talking about it, but it's like often misrepresented. Like he doesn't like in movies when people are always really, really serious during the whole experience of trauma, because like in reality, people often joke. You know what I mean?
mm.
So I think like that balance is so important, of levity in dark situations, because I do think that's how we react on some level. And yet it is important to show you know, the sobering aspects and the kind of more serious aspects of these situations. So I don't know if that made sense.
No, that's fine. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's very deep and profound. Now, as I'm winding down, I can't let you go without asking you about your stint or part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's every actor's dream come true. So,
Yeah.
what was that like working in Spider-Man: Far From Home, and what was it like working with Zendaya and Tom? Because I've never met them in person. What were they like?
Yeah, it was a really wonderful experience. I don't think, kind of like you said, it was every actor has to, like, not has to, but often we go through the motions of um getting a bunch of jobs that are, a little bit smaller parts at the beginning. And um I did the same thing as everybody else. It was just like a little part, but it happened to be in this crazy movie. So it was a really interesting experience because I was just kind of moving through the motions of being a new actor,
Mm,
doing my best to keep getting work and all that. But it was in this really amazing setting, and I made really, really good friends with everybody, and everybody was really wonderful. I would say, yeah, I don't know. Like, it was one of those situations where one day you're sitting in the green room before you're filming and everybody's talking and you're like, oh, this is super easy. And I was nervous that being kind of new, because everybody knew each other from the first movie, that wouldn't be the case, but it was a very inclusive space. And yeah, I got to go to Europe and
wow.
film a movie and hang out with like some really cool people. I don't have a huge list of complaints about that. Um, but I will say, like, it helped that everybody was so kind and like nice and patient. And yeah, it was a very, very cool experience.
Oh, I hope we get to return to MCU someday. That's my hope for you. And
Thank you.
finally, I'm not going to get too political, but I just want to pick your brain on this profound stuff. It's the year 2022. And unfortunately, sadly, there are still coordinated activist attempts in this country to demonize marginalized group, especially a trans community. It's 2022. I thought we've moved past this, but apparently we haven't. So, and I don't know if we will. So my two-parter final question for you is, are you still hopeful and optimistic, Zach, about the future? And what can we do to push back against this current negativity and hate?
I think sort of my previous answer stands a bit, right? Um, I think it's about finding the balance in the light and the heavy, being willing to sit with the discomfort of what's going on in order to like fully understand it, fully acknowledge it, not let it happen, being angry that it's happening so that we do something about it. Um, being sad about it so that we don't, because we have to take care of ourselves and we have to fight the problem and we have to like take care of each other. And so I think the only way to do that is, yeah, feel sad so that we're not repressing it, feel mad so that we fight back, and feel empathy for everyone else so that we can take care of each other. That being said, we also need to feel joy. And those are all very heavy emotions. And I think the best way we can handle them is to make sure that we are also distracting ourselves appropriately. And I don't know, everybody's mental health journey is different. I find it easier to talk about the experience I've had as an individual than I do, I think, to be like, how do we fight this? But I like also think there is some universal truth to like, it's going to be a really complex thing to do anytime there's 100+ laws a year being brought to legislation that are anti-trans. Like,
Mhm.
that sucks. It's so weird to be a trans person when that's happening, because I'm like, are you like, my priorities when I wake up in the morning are like walking my dog and like getting coffee and making sure I like don't forget to like, I don't know, like do whatever one singular task I've given myself that day. Like, I am hardly a threat. If anything, I'm a threat to myself. Like, I am just like not capable of coordinated like dismantling of society, nor am I interested in doing that. I'm just trying to humanize us. Like,
Mhm.
when I make this medium, my goal isn't to turn your kids trans. My goal is to like let you know that sometimes they will be trans, and that's cool because I'm hardly a threat, like nothing's wrong with it. I'm actually living an incredibly happy life with loving people. And I think it's really important for us to keep making media like this, and particularly media where the main characters are trans. They're not just like side characters and don't just exist to like help another character's development,
Mhm.
because the more we can have the audience feel like they can relate and look through the eyes of the trans people, I think the more we'll continue to humanize them. um, but yeah, I mean, like, we're harmless. Like, if anything, obviously we are the target of attacks way, way, way more than we are attacking anybody, if at all. I mean, I just can't think of a time that we've attacked people. But yeah, so that's all I got, is I think just reminding people that it's like sort of a complex journey I think we're going to be going down from now to the end of time, of trying to humanize ourselves and be mad, which is like a complex thing, because I want to be allowed to be mad when people are saying like, ew, like, to me, um but I don't want to like make us look bad. So it's just a really hard position for all of us to be in. And I think just looking at everybody with empathy and trying to take care of ourselves is all we can do.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for speaking your voice. We all need to hear that today. And for my fans at home, everybody go check out Dead End Paranormal Park, which I very much enjoy. Available now to stream on Netflix. Zach, thank you for talking to me and congratulations on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope you have a really great day.